All right, good afternoon, everybody. Here with Josh and Paul and a few guests I'll have a chance to introduce in a minute. Let me just spend a few days, give you a quick update on our daily summary. Positive cases, about 2% of the tests performed tested positive. So that's more good news, as you can see. Fatalities lingering, sadly. Hospitalizations continue to go down. I think it's down 75% since we initiated our reopen plan on May 20th. I just want to tell you one thing. Don't take these numbers for granted. They are good news, and they're not automatic, and they're thanks to a lot of the good work that you are doing in terms of social distancing. Let me show you this next chart. This next chart shows you the positivity rate, which is probably one of the most important metrics we've got right now. Positivity is of the people we tested, what percent tested positive. I mean, you can see Connecticut is, certainly on the better part of that curve at about 2.2%. Montana, virtually nothing. But look on the other side of the graph for those that have a much higher positivity rate. Virginia, Utah, South Carolina, Arizona close to 25%. This is according to the Johns Hopkins 7-day average. You say, what is going on? And we've been asking that question. You've been watching on TV and people tell you maybe because they opened too early. Well, maybe, but Arizona opened just a week or two before us. They were probably a little more aggressive. Maybe it's the demonstrations. There's maybe something to that as well. I did have occasion to talk to Governor Ducey, a good guy, my fellow governor of Arizona, and we just talked it through a little bit in terms of what we thought might be going on. And one thing worth remembering, and he reminded me, is that in Arizona, they didn't get as hit hard by COVID early on like we did. In Arizona, they probably know somebody that lost a job, but probably not somebody that lost their life to COVID. In Connecticut, you know somebody who lost their job, and you know somebody that lost their life. And I think that's made Connecticut, thankfully, a little stricter than the norm when it comes to wearing the mask and taking the social protocols seriously. And that's why hospitalizations are down so much even since our May 20th reopening. And we've got a little thoughts on wearing the mask. Everybody says, you're not as clear as you could be. You say wear the mask indoors, and you don't necessarily have to wear it outdoors. What if I'm in a screened-in porch? Do I have to wear the mask? Well, you have an answer for you here. We're putting this up. It says, if you have to ask, wear the mask. That's a kind way of saying use good judgment here, because our indications are by far the most important thing we can do to slow the spread of COVID and make sure we don't have a resurgence is for people to stay disciplined when it comes to the mask. Max, do you have the video? Okay, we're having a little fun, but it's also serious, and I think you could see by those charts that I showed you, it makes an enormous difference. Probably more than the exact dates of the reopening, more than a lot of the other protocols, wearing that mask is so key. It's also key to getting our state working again, and that's what I'd really like to talk to you about today. Right now, public health first, but we've got to get this state working again, and we got to get back to work safely. And I know at this point, a lot of people are collecting unemployment benefits, and the federal government has put an extra $600 on there. And that's a good thing. It's a bridge to a job. But remember, those extra benefits run out in about a month on July 25th. So now is the time to be really focused on getting back to work. And I think you remember a year and a half ago when I was taking office, I said, no more inline, online. I want to make sure that we're able to move more of our functions online. And nothing has reminded us of that more than this COVID crisis. So we do more telehealth, telelearning in terms of education, telecommuting in terms of folks who find they can work from home. And I want to talk to you a little bit today about our online jobs effort, jobs and training. And I think this is what is going to help us get back to work. So starting now, when maybe you're collecting an unemployment check, at the same time, you will get a notice from the state of Connecticut. And that is providing you free online job training. And sign up. Over 10,000 people have already signed up. Take advantage of this. These are amazing courses that we provided online. Certificate programs, everything from manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, project management, sales, skill sets that we have talked to major employers, skill sets they're looking for. And we'd like you to be able to take advantage of that and work with that. And we were talking to our major businesses, those that are members of Advanced CT. We've talked to Stanley Black & Decker. We're talking to Infosys. We're talking about the skill sets they are looking for. And this online job training will give you access to be able to do that and accelerate that program. We're also going to be working with the labor unions and the trades to make sure we're developing the skills online so folks there can hit the ground running on the backside of COVID as well. Of course, we're working with our community colleges, and they're going to be ramped in and have an online version of this as we get back to community colleges. We want people able to get back to work. And one of the things we will be doing next week is organizing a virtual jobs fair. A virtual jobs fair where you figure out what the skill sets you maybe are developing. A jobs fair, you take that to the jobs site, and we'll be able to match you up with a lot of the potential jobs that are out there right now. And we also have a coach there that can help get you integrated into the type of job you may be interested in. And thanks to our amazing friends from Indeed, the world's leading online jobs market in the world, we're going to be able to also set you up with real-time videos, video interviews, so we can provide you the online skills that you need through the certificate programs, right through to the jobs fair, right through to the interviews. This helps you hit the ground running as the unemployment comp begins to ramp down. The jobs are going to ramp up, and we want you really to take advantage of that. And I wouldn't be able to do any of that without our amazing business partners. And first person I'd like to introduce you to is Dave O'Neill. He's the CEO of Indeed. Indeed is one of Connecticut's, from my point of view, proud that they're here in Connecticut. As I said before, one of the world's leading job placement online firms in the country, in the world, I would tell you. And I want to leave you with one thought before I introduce Dave. I was just talking to him again this afternoon. And he reminded me that, look, the bottom fell out of the jobs market for 3 or 4 weeks. That was over a month ago. And now the jobs are beginning to come back. And he's seen a real uptick in jobs in service and retail, nurses, sales associates. He has a crystal ball and Indeed can help you find where those jobs are that you might be most interested in. Reminded me there's a real need for drivers out there. And we looked at the numbers, and if maybe 3% of people were ordering food online or for takeout 3 months ago, today it's 15%. 15%. So that just reminds you that the COVID job market is very different, or the post-COVID, than it was pre. And with that, Dave, I just want to thank you so much for helping us get this virtual jobs fair together, what you're doing in the online promotion, and tell us a little bit about the market out there and what you see for people.
Sure thing. Well, thanks, Governor. And you gave me a little bit of a promotion. I'm actually the COO, the Chief Operating Officer of Indeed, but we really appreciate the opportunity to partner with you and the state to try to help get the state back to work. And this initiative, the Back to Work initiative, really ties into Indeed's mission, which is to help people get jobs. Connecticut's been an important part of our company's growth and success. It was one of our founding locations when we started about 15 years ago, and we've now grown to over 1,000 employees in Connecticut. So when there was this opportunity to help the residents of the state whose jobs have been impacted by COVID-19 get back to work, we were really eager to get involved. So what we've done is we've been able to take our technology and create a custom jobs portal for the state that will allow job seekers to quickly and very easily find open jobs near them. We allow job seekers to go to the portal and create a resume and upload it there. And they can also search for jobs, and companies can search for resumes for looking for specific skills there. And companies, usually their jobs will automatically show up on the portal. But if you're a small business that doesn't have a career website, you can go and post your jobs directly to the portal, and those jobs will be available to the job seekers that visit. So we're really designed this to try to bring Indeed's job search technology and everything we've learned about helping people get jobs over the past 15 years directly to the residents of Connecticut. And in addition, you also mentioned that we're hosting the virtual job fair, or the virtual hiring event, to help connect job seekers to employers who have immediate hiring needs. So this hiring event is going to happen next week, the 16th to the 18th of June. We'll have nearly 40 employers looking for jobs like healthcare aides, nurses, retail associates, restaurant workers, warehouse workers, sales specialists, many others. And job seekers who sign up to attend can kind of skip the long application process, and they can move forward to the interview. And hopefully that allows workers to get back to work much faster. There's also a free webinar on the 15th of June where job seekers can get tips on how to succeed at a virtual hiring event, how to succeed with virtual video interviews. So we're really excited about the opportunities. And to your question about what we're seeing, healthcare workers are always a really important job market for Connecticut. So nurses assistants, home health aides, that's kind of a stable set of job opportunities that we're continuing to see. We've seen a big spike, as you mentioned, in delivery workers and logistics workers who are really helping everybody as we're dealing with this stay-at-home economy. And then as businesses start to reopen, we're seeing Main Street businesses starting to hire again. So, restaurant workers, retail workers, beauty and wellness, dental. And those are things that we're seeing really across the country. And we're happy to help plug job seekers into those opportunities and help employers get the workers that they need.
Hey, thank you, Dave. And it's worth noting that this is the first partnership that Indeed has done with the state, and we hope to see this grow and expand. Dave will stick around and be able to answer some questions, but first I'd like to introduce Chairman of our Workforce Council, Garrett Moran. When Garrett and I were talking 2 years ago about Connecticut, we always realized the quality of our workforce is our greatest strategic advantage. And Garrett, maybe it was a little easier when we were first talking because we saw where there was obvious needs, and for example, in advanced manufacturing, skilling people up for jobs that we weren't filling. And I'd just love to hear your thoughts now in this post-COVID economy. What are the type of jobs we're thinking about and how we can help people match there? Garrett?
Thank you, Governor Lamont. Good to be here today. I just say one thing in preference. The Governor's Workforce Council's primary job is to try to bring efficiency and responsiveness to our workforce system. So joining educators and trainers along with employers. At the same time, the mission is to create opportunity for the people of Connecticut. And that's anybody looking for a job, but it's also people who have faced obstacles, financial obstacles, being available for work at times that work for their families and so forth. A big part of our focus and mission is that what I call opportunity agenda. In the wake of the COVID virus and this tragedy surrounding George Floyd, we are all reminded that we need to make this real, that we can't just create a plan and put it on a shelf, and we can't just do the happy talk. We have to do things real. Today is exciting because we've got some real stuff to announce. The amazing Indeed team responded very rapidly to our request. We called them and asked them for their help because they knew what kind of an engine they had. They created this job portal, and the job fair opportunity almost seemed like overnight, which is great. At the same time, we're announcing 2 free online learning curricula that will be available to anybody on unemployment in the state. One was previously announced 5 weeks ago under the heading of Skill Up Connecticut. which is our metrics online learning curriculum, which is primarily focused on software. That was announced 5 weeks ago, and already 11,000 people in the state have registered, and 1,500 have already completed courses. So that's going like a house on fire and is very exciting. Those are all courses that lead to certificates and jobs, and the demand for IT skills in a specialized way, but also in a generalized way, is unabating. It's one of the real sources of demand among employers, and it makes anybody better at their work. So these are courses that you can do if you are in a job but waiting at home to go back, if you're trying to switch careers, or if you're trying to just generally make yourself more marketable within your firm. Today we're announcing another program called 180 Skills, which is a manufacturing-focused program. This is battle-tested. It's very popular in other states around the country. A lot of it was created by some manufacturing companies, and a lot of customized learning pathways have been created. It should be very accessible. Again, this is going to be available to all of our unemployed workers. The manufacturing sector has had a hiccup, but it's still fundamentally strong, and we expect it to come back. So this is another area where to the governor's question, where we think there will be continuing resilience. And third, an area where we spend a lot of time is healthcare, which is more challenging in an online context because of the clinical needs for learning. But we're working with a lot of our educators and trainers to come up with similarly low cost and accessible learning. So this is only the beginning. With that, I think I'll hand it over to Dante Bartolomeo, the Deputy Commissioner of the Department of Labor.
Well, thank you, Governor, and thank you, Chairman Moran, and our other partners, including Indeed and sister agencies. Commissioner Westby and I are so thrilled to represent the Connecticut Department of Labor here with all of you. To date, Connecticut Department of Labor has received over 610,000 applications for unemployment. So we are on the front lines of this unemployment crisis, and we are talking to and connecting with claimants daily. We understand the pain and the anxiety that they're going through during this crisis. So we are really, really excited and honored to be partners in this effort to get Connecticut residents back to work. We know we have a skilled talent pool, and we know that businesses are looking for folks. So to date, we have sent out over 473,000 letters, or emails, I should say, to our applicants, and trying to connect them with Skill Up and Connecticut business offerings and the manufacturing program that Commissioner Moran just spoke about. So we're very excited. We know that this initiative is really going to help people improve their skills, build a network, and get Connecticut residents back to work. So thank you for incorporating us into your initiative. Thank you, Governor.
Well, thanks, Dante and Garrett. And it's worth pointing out, as Garrett said, I want to make sure this is a jobs program that works for absolutely everybody. And we made a special effort to reach out to some folks that, sometimes get left behind. I should have mentioned that part of what we're doing with the jobs fair, what Indeed is doing, is they're working with Goodwill. And Goodwill has agencies all over the state reaching out to communities to make sure that everybody there knows that they're included in part of what we're trying to do here. People of color, folks who maybe don't always have that opportunity in the online opportunity. And Glenlyn Thames, Deputy Commissioner in Economic Development, is helping to take the lead in reaching out to this community as well. Glenlyn?
Thank you, Governor, and thank you, everyone. A lot has been said already, so I'm going to be very brief so we can get right to Q&A. But the Technology Talent Fund was established as a resource for both workers and employers out of DECD to ensure Connecticut has the workforce and talent needed to fuel growth in the technology sectors of Connecticut's economy. And so this fund was set up to invest in solutions just like we're talking about today for the remote learning tools. That said, the workforce development, is economic development for our communities and our residents. And now more than ever during this economic downturn, we have been focused on upskilling our workforce in partnership with our business community. And so if you find yourself unemployed, underemployed, please use this opportunity to take advantage of these new platform and online resources to retool, discover new skills, and connect with new job opportunities that will enable you to come out of this stronger. I want to give a special thank you to David and Indeed, Garrett and the Governor's Workforce Council, and Dante and the Department of DOL for this partnership and leveraging our resources in this way that is most impactful to our residents that are most in need at this point in time. So thank you. Back to you, Governor, for Q&A.
All right, well, I guess it takes a village, so if you have any questions, we've got Gwendolyn, you got Dante, remember Garrett Moran, broadly in terms of our Workforce Council, and Dave O'Neill in particular as regards this portal and what we're doing, and of course Josh and Paul that answer questions more broadly about where we are.
NBC Connecticut.
Governor, there are people coming out maybe from Florida, Texas, those with spikes in cases. Is the state looking to mandate any shelter in place for 2 weeks, similar to what Maine's doing?
We haven't gone there as yet. Obviously, if you're feeling any symptoms at all, we want you to shelter in place, as you point out. We haven't required any testing or anything along those lines, but we are looking at the infection rates pretty carefully.
And as far as more the economy, I know that there had been some hope that this would be more of a V-shaped recovery. It doesn't seem like that will be the case. Is there any data on how many jobs overall once things reopen, what the deficit's going to be from post-COVID and pre-COVID?
The budget deficit for Connecticut? Well, first of all, I hope it's a V-shaped or at least a U up. I don't want a W. Back up and then down again. And that's sort of what we worry about when you see the potential of these flare-ups and what you see in some other countries. You know, broadly speaking about Connecticut's budget, we have a deficit. The deficit is related to the fact that income tax and sales tax have taken a big hit. This is true of every state in the country. Most other states are more severely hit than we are. Fortunately, we did keep our rainy day fund intact, so that means we'll be able to get through this fiscal year, June 30. And more importantly, if we get this economy going back, we'll be able to get through the next fiscal year as well without having to do big tax increases or big spending cuts. But that's why this workforce effort is so important, to give people confidence in the skills and to match the skills and the jobs that are out there. Because you've heard from Dave, the jobs are coming back.
When I said deficit, I meant deficit in terms of the number of jobs. Is there any indication if there would be a deficit from post-COVID to pre-COVID, just some jobs that maybe will not come back? Is there any indication on what that could be?
Oh, I see. Sorry, I gave you that long speech. David, do you want to help out what you think the deficit for jobs might be going forward compared to where we were 6 months ago?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit challenging to say, what things are going to look like a few months from now. But what we saw a very steep drop in the number of jobs, as you would imagine, from early March through early April. We were down about 40% year over year. So we had 40% fewer job openings in early April than we had in early April of 2019. We've started to see a pickup. And we're now in the low 30s in terms of the decline year over year. So we're still not anywhere back to a normal economy because, as you can imagine, a lot of the businesses that are opening, they're opening at limited capacity. So they may not need exactly the same number of workers that they had previously. And there's all these trickle-down impacts on other kinds of businesses and the economy in general. So I think it's really hard to say what's going to happen in terms of the overall job deficit if you look out several months. I think to the governor's point, Connecticut's done a great job of bringing the case count down, but you are starting to see spikes in other states across the country, and we've seen that in our data. The activity levels are driven by reopenings, but then if you have a spike in cases, there's certainly a chance that there may be a negative impact at another point in time.
And my last question regarding the virtual job fair, is this anything that's been done previously in other states? Would there be more than one of these?
Yeah, so we've done these events for about 350 companies all around the country. We think that there's some real appetite from our customer base to continue to do this. We've also done some specific events like this for the state of New York and in the state of Texas. So we try to get really involved in the communities where we have big offices and a lot of employees, and those are two examples of that. Connecticut's the first state where we've developed a specific jobs portal, but on the hiring events, we have done those in a number of other cases.
News 8.
Good afternoon, everyone. Governor, with respect to the police task force, I know the preliminary report came out and includes banning chokeholds, mandatory body cameras, etc. I'm assuming you've seen the report. Do you support the recommendations, and is there anything you think should be added or taken out?
Look, I am supportive of the recommendations. I really appreciate the task force accelerating these recommendations in time for us to take a look at it, in time for the legislature to take a look as well. I believe strongly in community policing. I'd like to make this a broader piece of what we try and do going forward. Given the protests in and around George Floyd's tragic killing, I think you've seen how police working in collaboration with community activists have kept the peace and allowed people to express their First Amendment rights. The other thing that Paul and I are working on with the commissioners and Commissioner Ravella as well is sometimes police have to respond. Maybe it's a domestic abuse case, maybe it's drug-related, but often you need somebody else there as well to make sure you have the appropriate response. Maybe it's a social worker who knows the family, or maybe it's a social worker who understands addiction in a way that they can provide the right response. So we're going to broaden the lens as we work with the legislature to come up with a good solution here.
WTIC 1080 News. WTIC 1080 News. The Associated Press.
Good afternoon. Governor, a lot of the talk about jobs has been about people who have lost jobs and trying to get them back, but obviously this is happening at a time when you're graduating thousands of people into the workforce from high school and college. What's being done specifically for these people?
Hey, Garrett, can I pass that to you?
Sure. There's no one thing that you know, as you can appreciate, a lot of graduating high school seniors are left with a sort of a void at the end of their spring of their senior year. We just funded a program that would help inner city kids complete FAFSA forms and get peer mentor support so that they can finish their college completion process and also get some professional skills and technical skills support. That's going to be funded through 4CT, which is a philanthropy that was supported in response to the COVID environment recently. And we're excited about that, but it's small relative to the challenge. And I would say that the high school system, the K-12 system, as well as all the colleges are rallying around this and trying to figure out how to be inventive, but there's no one wholesale program that addresses this problem. It's come up on us very quickly, and it's got a lot of different sizes and shapes. They, of course, all can get the benefit of all these workforce infrastructure, but they've all got training and credentials that they want to monetize or capitalize on, and so it's more on them to figure that out.
And Governor, in regard to the task force and the recommendations, one of the issues in Connecticut has been when there is a officer-involved shooting, it has taken months, sometimes years, to get a report as to whether that shooting is justified or not. How do you solve that problem? I know we have one going on in Manchester now in terms of an investigation, and it's already been since April. So how do you make sure that justice delayed isn't justice denied in these cases?
I do think it takes an awful long time, and I'm sympathetic to that aphorism, justice delayed is justice denied. That said, as state's attorneys and Ravella and others have said, sometimes these do require investigations. Investigations can require lab work, and we've had a 4-month delay in and around COVID. But that said, I'm going to find ways that we can give people a faster response. The first thing we did was we passed a law last year that said your video is going to be released within 4 days. We have nothing to hide.
Okay, one final question sound kind of off the cuff, but the Office for Civil Rights has ruled that Connecticut is in violation of Title IX with its transgender athlete policy. Are you prepared to lose federal funds to keep these athletes competing as the gender with which they identify? And how are you reacting to that?
No, I don't want to lose any federal funds, that's for sure. Look, I'm looking at the NCAA, I'm looking at the Olympics, I'm seeing how those organizations handle this very delicate issue of somebody who identifies with a gender that they weren't necessarily born with. And I think we've got to work through that. I think we're going to get a lot of indications from the Olympics and the NCAA and perhaps follow their lead.
Thank you, Governor.
The Waterbury Republican American.
Thank you. I guess this is another sort of testing question. We're getting questions from readers who want to know, why can't they get a test now? I was just looking over the testing guidelines in your latest frequently asked questions, and they still limit it to people who have symptoms and people who live in certain settings and people who have certain occupations. And the question is, wouldn't it be sensible by this point to make COVID testing easily accessible everywhere in Connecticut to all?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Paul. I mean, I think all of the public health experts are really in agreement that kind of randomly testing healthy people is not a good use of resources, either in terms of the swabs, the reagents, or financially for that matter. And so, Connecticut is a state under the governor's leadership, like many others, that are trying to be strategic in our testing strategy. And you mentioned the key elements of that strategy. First of all, anyone who has any symptoms at all consistent with COVID, we're strongly encouraging that they get tested. And equally, people who have close contact with any of those people who do test positive should also get tested. Beyond there, when you start talking about healthy people, people with no symptoms, the public health strategy is really to focus in those populations where there is the highest risk, people who've experienced the most highest infection rates, the most deaths through this first wave. And really for the state of Connecticut, that's certainly people living in congregate settings, nursing homes, assisted living facilities, where the governor last week directed one of the first states in the nation to mandate weekly testing of nursing home staff and residents, major focus area for us, as well as prisons, where we have a lot of people living in close quarters. And then certainly in our cities, where we have neighborhoods that are very densely populated, racial and ethnic minorities who have been disproportionately impacted by COVID, where we're also encouraging broad-based testing of people with no symptoms. But beyond that, we do want to make sure we're prioritizing our resources carefully, knowing that we're going to need to be testing for the long term here.
And what about the number of testings and meeting the the goals that you guys set today? I believe, we're supposed to be on track for 100,000 tests a day, and we're supposed to be doing 6,000 tests a day. And the report again shows us under 6,000 today. It's 5,030 additional tests have been reported.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I think on the very first page of the governor's reopen report, it said that our plans will change based on new things that we learn about COVID. And certainly, over the last couple of weeks, there's been new guidelines that have come out from the CDC that have caused us to relook at some of our plans. Certainly, there's been a lack of clarity from the federal government about what they're going to pay for. And so the financial sustainability of our program is obviously important. And we've learned a lot, too, from the first phase of our scale-up, where we rapidly doubled or tripled the amount of testing we were doing over the last month. And look, the metrics are great, right? The positivity rate is very low. We are one of the top 10 states in the nation in testing per capita. The hospitalizations continue to decline rapidly. So, yes, we have adjusted our plans there very deliberately, but we're continuing to focus on those focus populations, nursing homes, prisons, our cities, where we know we can really reduce the public health risk.
And sort of on this question of a special session agenda, today the Senate Republicans released a caucus expressing, I guess, some support for taking action on things like chokehold and neck restraints, but also saying we shouldn't do more comprehensive reforms until we've had an opportunity to sort of return to the regular legislative process, and that includes conducting public hearings and hearing from all interested parties on proposed legislation or what they'd like to see in proposed legislation. And the same thing on absentee ballots. So I'm just wondering if you could sort of respond to those points and anything else that the Republicans have brought up in the last couple of days.
I'll start and hand it over to Paul. But look, when it comes to George Floyd and the angst that people feel across this country, when it comes to police accountability, when it comes to giving people confidence that our police are doing the right thing, I don't want to wait. And I think we've got a legislature. Paul's meeting with the legislative leadership on both sides of the aisle to see if we can find some common sense solutions to build upon the very far-sighted bill that was passed last year. And as regards absentee balloting, you know, I've done through executive order that takes us through the primary in August. But I think we all worry that there could be a second surge of this pandemic. It could be in October, November, right in the middle of a very important contested election. I think it's really important that the legislature take this up and make sure that people who feel at risk in terms of their health in this COVID era can still exercise their right to vote, but without having to wait in a long line to cast a ballot. You saw what happened in Georgia just a couple days ago. I don't want that to happen in Connecticut. Paul?
And as the governor stated in his letter to both the caucuses and legislative leaders of the legislature, this is not a time to wait. This is the time to seize the moment. And that's what the governor is looking to do. And so as we said, the letter provided by the Senate Republican leader and their caucus represents one caucus out of 3 within the legislature. We look forward to hearing from the other caucuses as well as we have further discussions. But at the end of the day, the bill that will be taken up is the one that has consensus within the legislature. And that's when the governor will call for a special session.
The day of New London.
Questions that I think anyone could answer. One, I was just wondering if you could clarify some of the online training programs that people could do for free at this time.
Eric, do you want to talk about the online training programs?
Sure. There are 2 programs. They're both being made available now to anyone who's filed an unemployment insurance claim. One is under the metrics banner. The underlying curriculum is called Branded Skillsoft. It focuses a lot on the IT skills, a lot of related business process skills and so forth, but IT is the center of it. It's many thousands of courses organized into badges and so forth, and can result in earning certificates that have real market value. This is widely used in corporate America, so it's constantly tested in terms of its market utility. The other is called 180 Skills. It was created by the Boeing Corporation, and it has typically been a combination of online with on-site training. Now it is focused pretty much solely on remote learning for obvious reasons, I guess. Advanced manufacturing, a lot of life skills curriculum in that one as well. So professional skills, how to show up at work, how to plan your life, how to work in a team and so forth. But the core competency is manufacturing. We're talking to a number of community colleges as well as companies who we hope will be able to use this curriculum and make it available in the case of companies to their incumbent workers who can leverage this curriculum and upgrade their skills while they're at home. And in the case of community colleges and other colleges, have them integrate this curriculum into their teaching processes. So a professor might teach a course and tell his or her class to watch some of the classes that are embedded in 180 Skills or metrics, so that they could complement and improve the quality and the market relevance of what they're teaching. But those are available now, as I say, to unemployment applicants. 180 Skills we hope to get companies to sponsor as well as academics.
I'd only add to that there are a number of aerospace certificate programs there, and we've worked on that in association with Pratt & Whitney for reasons you can figure out. There are a number of IT-related programs available, and we've talked to Infosys about some of the skill sets necessary and what they see in the market. There's a fair amount there about sales and customer service. So we've worked with Stanley Black & Decker when it comes to some of the programs we have. So we're trying to do this in association with our companies to make sure the job set is very relevant to the Connecticut economy.
In our state, we have 4,000 manufacturing companies that have an average of 20 employees. So a very big universe of companies that are suppliers typically to bigger companies. They don't have the HR departments or the bandwidth, so to speak, to do this kind of training. And our team is in communication with the Connecticut Manufacturers Collaborative, which are a bunch of folks who fit that description, who are very interested in engaging with us on that, so they can be effective in maintaining the skills of their workers, notwithstanding their small size. So it could be a very good fit.
I also imagine there are a good amount of people out there who maybe have jobs that would be coming not in phase 1 or phase 2, but further down along the line in phase 3, maybe, bartenders, event planners who maybe assume that their job will come back someday, or they know their company will reopen but aren't sure whether they'll still have a job. What advice do you have for people who maybe are hesitant about doing other training or applying for other jobs because they're still, hopeful that they will get their job back eventually?
In part, I think it's a personality question. I'm risk averse. If I thought my job might not come back, I'd be preparing for the alternatives. These are things that are easy to get access to. They're relatively straightforward to work on. You can test your likes and dislikes. There are online competency tests that would allow a bartender or waitress to figure out whether they might fit better in healthcare or IT. They could go test that by doing some coursework. There's no downside as long as you have time available to do the work, and I would encourage anybody to do that.
Move along next to CT News Junkie.
Thanks, Max. So I don't know if Dante might be able to answer this question, but what is happening with summer youth employment funding? I believe that it was included in the budget, but I don't know if that's happening this summer or not.
So Summer Youth Employment Program is still incorporated into the budget, and it is still allocated to go through Connecticut Department of Labor. There's a couple different funnels of summer youth employment funding, and given that we're not yet into the next fiscal year, I have nothing other than to report that it's part of the budget.
Okay, so I mean, Capital Workforce Partners is going forward and providing these opportunities to youth in Connecticut?
I have every indication to believe so at this point in time. There's no indication of anything differently.
Okay, and is there anything specific within these job training programs that you're talking about to target college grads?
Not in particular. They're open to everybody, and I think the salient point here is that they're free, that they are market tested in terms of providing for certificates that employers recognize and want to hire for. I think there are a lot of liberal arts college graduates, for example, who could do very well by getting some IT certificates to put on their resume to make their life easier and to make them more appealing as a candidate. There are very, very few people anywhere in America who would say they wouldn't be better off with more IT skills, for example. Not everybody feels that urge with advanced manufacturing, but almost everybody I know says if I knew a little bit more, I'd be better off.
Thank you. And Governor, I just wanted to know, I know that absentee ballots and police accountability are on the top of the agenda for a special session. Is there ongoing conversations about iLottery, online gaming, and sports betting happening at the same time for maybe not the immediate special session, but maybe before the start of the 2021 session?
We'll see. We've got some proposals and conversations going with the tribes, ways that we can move this forward without getting us stuck in litigation, and looking forward to hearing back. And by the way, to your previous question, I'm with you 100%. I can't think of a year where these youth employment programs are more important. I'm talking to 4CT about ways we might be able even to expand them. We've got young people that have been cooped up for a while, and they want to get back.
Thank you.
Connecticut Public Media.
Good afternoon, Governor. Wanted to know your thoughts on UConn's reopen plan and bringing back students to live there in the fall.
I think UConn's reopening plan is very thoughtful. My understanding is there's going to be some online. People are going to be moving back in the residence halls. They won't be moving back all at the same time. I was talking to Tom Katsouleas this morning. I think 75% of the kids will be able to go back into the residence halls. Some of them are not oriented quite, so they can't get to 100%. When it comes to cafeterias, the food will be takeout, so you don't have 500 people sitting in a particular cafeteria. I think the classes are going to be going forward. Some may be online for the older professors, but I think the vast majority will be a traditional college experience. So I think they got it right.
The Connecticut Mirror.
When the Governor's Workforce Council was put together, unemployment was somewhere between 3% and 4%. And Garrett Moran spoke very optimistically about the ability to get employers to look at workers who perhaps in a different economy they would not look at. Can you give me a sense as to what is the feeling now as to what's a realistic goal? Some of the what you guys have all been talking about today sounds similar to what you were talking about last fall and into January. But how has the COVID pandemic changed what is realistic as to what you can do to increase these opportunities for what Garrett talked about, the folks who, the 40% of Connecticut residents who can't afford an unexpected expense of $400 or so?
You want to start with that, Garrett?
Sure. It's a really, obviously, it's a very timely and difficult question. Many of the things that prevented young people, particularly from seizing opportunities that they might otherwise have, that would vault them into the middle class, that would get them middle skill jobs that require training, were not being had because they weren't getting the training and they weren't getting the adult support that they needed. That need still exists. The training needs to be provided in an effective, efficient way, and we need to figure out how to organize adult support for young people so that they can get those jobs. So none of that has changed. On the employer side, an employer faced with an abundance of candidates might say, well, I don't need to look at non-traditional sources of labor because there's such a surfeit of people who I'm used to hiring. I think that's substantially mitigated by the remarkably widespread recognition in corporate America that things have changed now. In the context of the George Floyd tragedy and what is going on, I think people realize that there are genuine structural obstacles that are just not fair, that there's a lot of injustice in our system, and that we all have to participate in addressing this, and that they, as employers, can do a lot of things, and one of them is how they hire, and that young people in our society are not going to go work for companies that are not tuned into those kinds of needs. So I'm optimistic that we still will have lots of companies that will want to listen and participate and creatively engage with historically untraditional sources of labor. But it's on us to prepare those people that have traditionally been disenfranchised for that. So I think it's a two-way street. But it's no doubt this is more difficult. The full employment economy was a great opportunity economy. So this will be a learning process for everybody.
The full employment economy pass, as Garrett said, gave a lot of kids who might not otherwise have that first opportunity, that first rung on the ladder. And so we're making a special effort to make sure that those young people get the skills they need. And Garrett and the Workforce Board are working with all the companies in this state to make sure they feel the same obligation we do, that these kids get an opportunity. I think, especially in the last 2 weeks, we've reminded ourselves how important that is for everybody.
Some of the programs that manufacturers said made them more willing to consider somebody they would consider to be a riskier hire was the fact that the state of Connecticut was, for periods, subsidizing their employment, basically paying on the job training. Some of that stuff has been cut back. Given the state's fiscal challenges right now, what are your thoughts about resuming that kind of funding? Can the state afford it? Should the state be doing that as an investment?
I think it's a priority, and we're looking at it, Paz, and finding a way to do it. I think it gives these kids an opportunity, gives companies an incentive. Like Garrett said, you know, a year ago, companies were looking for talent wherever they could find it, willing to take a little more of a risk. I got to make sure they're still willing to take a little more of a risk.
Thank you.
Hearst, Connecticut Media.
Thanks, Max. Could Josh or Gwendolyn give me some details on what the contract with Indeed amounts to, who's paying for it, and how it was bid out, please?
It was a tough negotiation. I think I can answer that. They're both free.
Yeah.
And how is Indeed making money on this then?
So we're not making money on the virtual hiring event. We're offering that for free. It is a product that we offer to employers more broadly on a nationwide basis. So you know, we believe that in this instance and in this moment, given what the country is going through, that we can do partnerships with you know, the places, especially where we operate, and have a chance to make an impact, a positive impact on the communities without a big concern for, you know, what our take on that is going to be.
Well,
and
then
just
maybe
it's free for
go ahead.
employers who are participating as well as the job seekers.
So what's the value then of the Connecticut Back to Work initiative, like monetarily? What's the budget impact?
There are four components: the two Dave just described, and then the two other software programs. They're both funded by one by the Tech Talent Fund, which is a set aside that bond funded that Glenn Thames oversees, and the other's source was a couple $100,000 from Chifa, which has a philanthropy arm. So there's no cost to the state of any of this stuff so far.
Okay, thank you very much, Governor. Hartford seems on track to defund the police department. Can you give us a reaction to that?
I don't think it's going to be defunding the police department. That would shock me. I think, broadly speaking, as I suggested before, look, I believe in police departments. I believe in community policing. I believe policing is much more effective when you work in collaboration with the community. But I would bring in the social service providers as well. It's not an either-or, cut from here, social service there. I think you need both in order to address the real needs that are out there.
Thanks. And the House Republicans today sent the governor a letter asking for you to rescind funding relief for 90 days to possibly push back into at least September the scheduled pay raise. Is that something, A, you've read, and B, you're considering, Governor?
It's called a contract, Ken, and I didn't sign this contract, and it was signed before the legislature signed off on it, and the contract calls for, you know, that increase on July 1st, I think it is. I think you've heard my point of view on it at a time when you have, you know, hundreds of thousands of folks who are on furlough, on unemployment, just struggling to keep their job. This is not the time for an across-the-board pay increase, but a contract is a contract.
And I'll also add, that was one of many things they mentioned in their letter. I think one of the other things they mentioned in their letter was to try to question the governor's authority and his executive orders, particularly saying that they want to do a broad review. So we actually did a broad review for an understanding. About 70% of the governor's executive orders have relaxed a statutory or regulatory requirement that was previously passed by the General Assembly under law. 70%. To allow for the governor to respond to this public health emergency, to ensure our municipalities were able to do what they need to do, and ensure that our health sector was able to respond. So we look forward to if they want to do a further review, but easily we'll be happy to send it right over to them.
Thank you.
Channel 3 Eyewitness News.
Good afternoon. I had a question for Dave from Indeed. You handle a lot of, help a lot of people trying to find jobs. Is Connecticut's workforce prepared? Do you think that people can slide into some of these jobs, or do you think it's going to take people a long time and they may get frustrated and try something else? I mean, how prepared are these people that you try to help?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, and it really varies based on the type of opportunity that a job seeker is going after. When we do these virtual hiring events, we typically do some early stage screening just to verify the eligibility of the job seekers for the roles that the companies are hiring for. And the skill levels and the requirements can really vary significantly. So I think in a number of these service sector jobs, the number of skills in terms of certifications or advanced education that are needed are fairly limited, and those are the jobs that are needed right now. So I think we've been trying really hard to get those employers matched up with job seekers who can help them run their businesses. And then to some of the other points that have been made, when local municipalities or the state put into place programs where job seekers can build skills that are matched to the demand in the market, then that becomes a really impactful part of the process.
Thank you. And my other question is for Dante Bartolomeo. Dante and I have talked a few times about the contact center, which is going to open in mid-July. Is it still very crucial to have that? I would imagine it would, even though we're seeing a decline in people who are, may not need benefits for that long, but you're going to find people who are going to need partial benefits, right? Because business is not going to bring back as many employees. And what's the status with the contact center and negotiations?
So you're going out in and out a little bit, Susan. Yes, it is still absolutely necessary that we get the contact center up and going. Given the pandemic, we had to close the AJCs, the American Job Centers, to the public, as you know. So we need a way to be able to connect with our customers more than we were prepared to have. We didn't have the technology available for that. We didn't have the phone service available for that. And without personal contact, which customer service was fantastic when we had 18 locations throughout the state that customers could go in and work with folks. Given the pandemic, we found ourselves in a very, very difficult situation, as well did our claimants. It's imperative that we have it because not only are we seeing, this influx in Connecticut state unemployment applications, which is slowing slightly right now, but we also had to stand up 3 additional federal programs without any notice at all, as you are aware. So we've stood up the $600 FPUC. We've stood up the PUA for self-employed and other exhaustees. We've stood up the PEUC for exhaustees as well. We're in development and preparing for the EB, which is the extended benefit for the state unemployments, which we've triggered because of the quick increase in unemployment rates. And there may even be one beyond that. So the point is that we are still in the middle of these programs. They will continue with the extended benefits, especially. And then there's also a need on the back end to be working with folks a lot and to be able to be doing a lot more of processing on the back end. The contact center we are very excited about is going to have, as you said, mid-July. There will be access for folks to be able to do live text and live chat, as well as phone service with our processors, in addition to a chat bot service. So it'll be comprehensive, much beyond what a call center is. And it's really, really important for us to be able to have that so we can get folks straightened out and get them the benefits that they need, whether it be state benefits or federal.
Thank you, Dante. And I'll leave you with this, and that is I got a phone call the other day from someone who reached the Department of Labor and said everyone was wonderful and very helpful. So I wanted to pass that along.
Thank you so much for that positive feedback.
The Hartford Current.
Hey everyone, this is Emily Brindley from The Current. I want to take it back to testing. Josh, you were talking about the need to preserve testing resources, but state officials have also repeatedly said that the state already has enough capacity to run 100,000 tests per week. So given that, your comments about shifting strategies make it sound like the state is intentionally testing fewer people. Is that what you're saying? Is it part of the state's strategy to scale back its testing goals?
No, I mean, our testing has just been going up. We have, as I mentioned, been looking to make sure we're being the most strategic with those resources. So the laboratory capacity, you're absolutely right. With the testing partners that we've been working with to scale up the capacity, Jackson Labs, Semaphore, Yale New Haven Hospital System, Genesis. We're very fortunate to have a number of companies in this state who have made the investments to scale up that capacity. But how we use that, we still want to be strategic because we don't want to use resources in a way that don't help us maximize our ability to reduce the public health risk, particularly as we continue to reopen the economy.
I mean, with all due respect, the state's testing numbers are not going up. Over the past week or so, they've been steadily going down or at most staying the same. It's about 40,000 right now for the past 7 days. So are you saying that the state is no longer reaching towards the testing goals that it set?
Yeah, as I said, we're constantly reevaluating our strategies. I think you will see the numbers have been relatively flat over the last 2 weeks or so as we've done this review. We've been consulting with the latest CDC guidelines. Now as we start to get into the mandatory testing of nursing home staff and workers for the second round of testing workers, I think into next week, as that goes live, you'll see those numbers start to tick back up.
So is the state still standing
If I could.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Josh and the labs and our partners have done an extraordinary job of expanding our testing capacity, just like they've done on track and trace. But as I said before, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And we're doing everything we can to get our testing out into the communities, out into that lot behind the church, everything we can with the not-for-profit communities in those neighborhoods to convince people this is what you ought to do. It's for your health and it's for the health of the community. Right now we have a little more capacity than we have people want to get tested. And it's sort of the same thing on track and trace with a very low infection rate. We're able to contact people. We try and contact people, tell them, look, if you want to keep your family safe, let us know who you've been in contact with. About half the people don't get back to us, and we've got to do a better job on that.
So the state is now 6 days away from the second phase of reopening, and you're sitting steady at about 40% of the testing goal. So are you going to meet that testing goal by June 17th?
I think more importantly, what you're going to see is we're going to be going forward on June 17th, since we have a much lower positivity rate, a much lower infection rate. We have a good sense of what's going on in terms of community spread. We've had a good month since we opened up on stage one in terms of outdoor dining in the stores. So we feel very confident that we can go forward on June 17th, just like we projected a couple of weeks ago.
Do you believe the state is going to reach its testing goal, though?
I think to a certain degree that depends on whether people will go out and get tested. We have the capacity, as I said, but also, as Josh said, we're still waiting to hear the feds make up their mind on whether FEMA pays for this or not, or pays for some of it. But that's not slowing us down. Right now, we're taking the tests into the community and doing everything we can to encourage folks to get tested.
Next to Fox 61.
Hi, Governor. Do we have numbers yet on the amount of unemployed residents that have already signed up for these free training courses? And if so, what is that pool of people looking like?
I think I heard the number 11,000 have already signed up. Garrett or Dave, do you know who they are? What type of people are signing up outside of, they're unemployed and it's available to them free of charge?
Yeah, we don't have any specific information on who the participants are yet.
And it was mentioned that healthcare obviously is a big employer here in Connecticut, but it's hard to create virtual training programs for more healthcare jobs. When could we see such programs created, time frame wise?
Well, all the educators in the state have become online educators. So there are lots of healthcare trainers in the state, and they typically form training partnerships with local hospital systems, the educators in the hospital systems. And those still exist, and they're all working on improving the delivery of talent to healthcare systems, and they're doing it online. It's just that many of the certifications, and it's a very certification, driven industry because of the patient contact, they all require clinical hours. And so that's been a challenging evolution in this environment. That's just a technical issue. Anyway, so far these problems are being solved in sort of one-to-one type relationships. We're working on helping to improve those and to try to create, sector alliances that would accelerate that. But it's there are fewer, for whatever reason, there are fewer broadly available online healthcare training tools that we found have broad market acceptance. And I think it's because of the differences in regulation and the constant need for a combination of online and clinical. It's just less of an open market than, say, IT or advanced manufacturing.
News 12 Connecticut. Bosito Media.
I think that could be a wrap. Let me just follow on something I heard Garrett say. To rephrase it, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. And we were hit hard. We were hit hard, obviously, by COVID and a COVID-related recession. And as you heard Dave say, the bottom fell out of the job market. And Dante was here, able to show you what we're doing in terms of unemployment benefits. You know that you've got a free opportunity to get the skill sets to help you get restarted again. Think of this as a chance to restart. That unemployment true-up lasts for about another 5 weeks or so. And I would use this as an opportunity. As somebody said, hey, I've got a bartender. I hope the job comes back next month. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I hope it does. I know it will. But in the meantime, here's an opportunity at no cost to you to take advantage of this time you got and see where your skills and dreams can take you. A crisis is a terrible thing to waste, and I hope this gives you a bit of an opportunity. Thanks, everybody.